on in and welcome to wherever you are. Welcome to Unity of Wilmington's virtual service. I'm Reverend Nikki Golden. Reverend Mindy Tucker is here too. We are the co-ministers of this beautiful spiritual community, and we are excited to be with you for this time during wherever you are watching from, whatever time you are watching from. We are excited because we believe that we have a truth that makes a difference in the lives of people. We believe that when we live that truth, when we live spiritual principles, our life changes and our lives can become phenomenal. And that's what we want for ourselves, and that's what we want for you. We want to remind you of three very special things. You are a beloved expression of God. Breathe that in for a moment. I'm going to say it to you again. You are a beloved expression of God. You're here for a holy purpose, and I believe that purpose is to learn to love fully. To learn to love ourselves and to learn to love each other and to live our spiritual path, to live our spiritual truth. And we're always in the right place at the right time, and that right time is now because we only have the now moment. So as we begin to expand our awareness, to tune into our oneness, let's celebrate the very essence of the life that flows through us in this very moment.
Imagining you're far away, searching for the words to say. I feel it when you fall apart. Our lives are our greatest art. I don't wanna change your mind, 'cause I accept you for everything you are and will be. Stay with me now. The only thing that our hearts are made of are the acts of forgiveness and love. The only thing real when push comes to shove are the acts of forgiveness and love. 'Cause in the end, no one loses or wins. The story begins again and again with forgiveness and love. You don't ever have to read my mind. You can see it when you close your eyes. Don't believe it when you lose your faith. Another moment is a moment away. I can tell you what the future holds or how to live. All I know is what feels right lights up my life again and again. The only thing that our hearts are made of are the acts of forgiveness and love. The only thing real when push comes to shove forgiveness and love.
We're talking today about forgiveness and love and the relationship that lives between forgiveness and love. Have you ever loved someone and you felt hurt by something that they've done, or they felt hurt by something that you've done? That calls us to learning how to navigate the waters of the hurt, of the pain, of the anger, of the sadness, whatever emotion, whatever sense came up for you. And sometimes navigating this relationship between love and forgiveness can feel difficult. We kink our hose, so to speak, kink the flow of life that we are when we hold on to things and we do not practice forgiveness. So we're kinking the hose of love. It's like a clogged pipe when we're not practicing forgiveness after something occurred between ourselves and someone else, or even between ourselves and ourselves. There were times when I get really mad at myself because I didn't do something I said I was going to do. And the moment I'm mad at myself, I'm going to cascade a whole bunch of chemicals in my body. Hormones of stress is what we often hear them talked about. So I'm going to cascade those chemicals, and I'm going to start to feel stress, and my limbic system is going to kick in, and my prefrontal cortex is going to kick out, and I'm going to have difficulty being logical, linear, rational. And if I'm really mad, I may say some things that I regret because I'm not thinking clearly. Forgiveness is one of the factors, there are many, that help us bring that frontal cortex and the prefrontal cortex back online and to relax the limbic system so that I can come back into that flow of love. I want to remind us as we talk about forgiveness and love and their relationship that we're talking about a frequency of love, very much like a note on the piano. If I were walked over there to the piano and hit the A above middle C, that A is usually 440 hertz. It's a frequency, it's a tone, and it has a particular sound that it stays at unless it's gone sharp or flat. So it holds that frequency. So as we talk about love, we're really talking about the frequency of love. We're talking about God love, because the Bible teaches us in 1 John that God is love. The Bible also teaches us in Genesis that we are created in the image and likeness of God. Therefore, we are created in the image and likeness of love. So we are love. The question is, are we living our love frequency? Or are we caught up in the rush of emotions of love, which can be very dramatic and also pull us off center? And that's where learning how to practice forgiveness opens us back up. It probably opens us up back somehow too, to remembering that we are the flow of life. We are the flow of love. We're fully human and fully divine in nature. And what we want to learn how to do is merge those human and divine natures of ours so that we're living in the flow of life, as Reverend Eric Butterworth would say. Now, Charles Fillmore defines love as that energy that emanates from the heart and wants only the best for the object of its affection. So the energy that emanates from the heart and wants only the best for everyone. For everyone. I want to live my life wanting the best for everyone because I see beyond the behavior. And I believe that this is what unity teaches, and I believe that we're being called to in every moment is to see beyond behavior that we're judging, because every behavior is neutral until we put something on it, we put an interpretation on it. An event is neutral until we put an interpretation on it. That's why different people have different reactions to the same event. We're bringing our interpretation to it. And so I want to be one who's able to look beyond what's going on and see the Christ in someone, to see the divine in someone, to see the wholeness of somebody, whatever word you want to use. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, also goes on to say this about love. Love is the pure essence of being that binds together the whole human family. The pure essence of being. And notice that being is capitalized. That we're talking about principle here. We're talking about God. And in Unity, we believe that God is principle. And that spiritual principle is always at work, whether we're aware of it or not. And that spiritual principle is exacting as mathematical principle. For instance, spiritual principle simply is. It's the very essence of life. It is love. And that's why we say love is all there is, because it is love. Spiritual principle is love. We are love, but what happens to us is that we forget that we are love. We get into a feeling that where we feel separate from love. We start to look outside ourselves for love when that occurs. And then we start looking at other people and deciding who they are, and are they love or not love? Are they being loving or not loving? And much of it is actually based on our perception of life, our belief systems, and our own perceptions of life. And we have to look deeper. And I believe that this is part of why Unity is not for sissies, is that we are being called to take responsibility for what our experience is, for what our perception is, and we are called to look beyond the behavior of some. Now, that does not mean condoning behavior, and this is a piece of the puzzle of some folks having difficulty with forgiveness, is that there's some difficulty in, we believe that if we're forgiving the person, then we're condoning the behavior. But let's look at it for a moment. If we're forgiving the behavior of a person, there's something that's happened for us to forgive. So the very act of forgiving is not condoning. The very act of forgiving is actually about release. It's about letting go. It's about us being able to let go of the hurt, of the pain, of the sadness, of the anger, whatever that is for us, to work it through within our own selves and to release the energy of it so that we're not holding on to the energy of it. So that we're not carrying something based on an interaction with somebody else. We don't have to carry that pain for 20 years or 30 years or 50 years or even 5 minutes. When we learn how to practice the art, and I believe forgiveness is an art, and it's also a practice, so that we can unkink the hose or unclog the pipe of love. And as I said, spiritual principle is as exacting as mathematics. And what I want to go back to say that I sort of skipped over in my own mind was that mathematical principles don't get mad at us. They don't punish us. They don't decide that we're bad people because we misadd or missubtract or make a mistake in multiplication or division. I mean, when we think about it, it's actually kind of ridiculous to think about on some level. Well, mathematics got mad at me today because, oops, when I did 2 plus 2, I actually put a 5. And I meant to put 4, but I got distracted and stuck a 5 down. So I know I'm going to be punished for my inability to add in that moment. And yet, we anthropomorphize God, and we do that very thing. Oh my goodness, I said something, I said a word I shouldn't have said, and I did it in the place I shouldn't have done it, and so now I'm going to be punished by God for that. or I engaged in a behavior, something I might think is really big, that somebody else might think is no big deal, and now I'm going to have to make amends to God for that. Well, spiritual principle is simply loving. Divine mind, which is what unity calls God, divine mind doesn't have a sense of that is wrong. Divine mind is loving. We are love. We are connected to that divine mind. In unity, we talk about there is really only one mind, and that's divine mind. And our mind is connected, is at one with divine mind. The question is, are we in alignment with that mind? Are we utilizing our mind in the same principle and in the same way by simply loving? Now, we as human beings living in a relative world need to know that we have the right as love, and it is very loving to hold somebody else as accountable. Accountability. Are you really sorry that you did that? And we might ask that question and hear the response, but we'll know by the behavior that comes afterwards. Was this something triggered in me that needed healing, and you just happen to be the catalyst for that? And my job is to do the healing, and your job is to look at your own behavior and decide, was that intentional? There's a family therapist that I adore. She's no longer on this earth planet, but her name is Virginia Satir. One of the most amazing things about Virginia Satir is no matter who she talked to, no matter what kind of problems that came in with an individual or a family, she looked beyond the behavior to see the good intention, because she held a foundational belief that people have good intentions, but something happens in our lives sometimes that redirect our intention so that we have difficulty interacting with others. Sometimes we have difficulty following the laws of the land. Sometimes we have difficulty following the community guidelines of whatever community we're involved in. And then when we have enough difficulty, it's actually an act of accountability and an act of love to say to somebody, I'm sorry, this is not working here. You're not resonating with our community, and we're not seeing you're changing in a way. Now that may sound judgmental to some, and that's okay, but there is an ability for us to be shaped by our behavior. In religiosity or in spirituality, it would be stated like this: we're not punished for our sins, we're punished by our sins. And what that means is when we sin, which is error thinking, when we engage in error thinking, then it's that error thinking and the behaviors, the actions that come after it, that we receive consequences for, and that would be called punishment. It's very much like a child who receives consequences for running out into the street. You're going to bring them back, you're going to talk to them, and you're going to set limits for where they can go. And then they eventually learn. We have natural consequences too. For instance, if I touch my hot stove, I'm going to burn my finger or my hand, and that's a natural consequence. I'm held accountable by the laws of physics or science about that hot stove and my tender flesh. So we all have that accountability. And what forgiveness does is it invites us to look at that accountability and to make some decisions and engage in some practices in our life. Now, Charles Fillmore also says that what we perceive as sin does not originate in divine mind. This is what I've been talking about. In its absolute state, it exists because humankind persists in thinking, feeling, and believing, and believing, and being separate from spirit. I must have missed a word there. Humankind persists in thinking, feeling, and believing that they are separate from spirit, that we are separate from spirit. We persist in that. We do it for a lot of reasons. I was brought up in a spiritual community that told me if I didn't act a certain way, then God would punish me. If I didn't believe a certain thing, then I could not enter the gates of heaven. But I see heaven differently than that spiritual community does. I'm grateful to have been brought up in that. I have a good foundation in Bible. But what I have done is grown beyond that. And I don't see myself as separate from God most of the time. And there are those times I do. And when I do see myself as separate, I'm less likely to be loving. I'm more likely to be judgmental. I'm more likely to be critical. I'm more likely to engage in blame behavior. But as I spend time in meditation, as I spend time standing in the energy of love and recognizing that love is actually a frequency and not an emotion, then I've been able to engage in a regular practice of forgiveness. Edwene calls it noticing every day who and what I've put outside my heart. It's that simple. And it's also taking the responsibility, the ability to respond to an action that has come toward me, whether it's from an event or from another individual, and take the responsibility for my decision about it. When we know, if we knew, and when we know, beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are divine, and we are living in the consciousness of that divinity, we align ourselves with divine mind, and we cannot. When we are in alignment with divine mind, we cannot judge. We may say no to somebody. We may say, I'm not willing to spend this time with you. But that's an act of love for ourselves and for another. Because what we allow, we are condoning. And if I don't like something that somebody else is doing, and I need to speak up and I need to say it, I want to do it from a consciousness of love. I'm feeling uncomfortable by your tone of voice. I'm feeling uncomfortable by how close you're standing to me. I'm feeling uncomfortable about, or I didn't like it when you said. But remember, if you listen to that, I'm speaking for myself from an I position, sharing with another. It becomes blame or judgment, and we can be subtle human beings who can do this. I didn't like what you said, and I think you're a jerk for saying it. So we've taken something that we're centered in and then applied a blame statement, a judgment statement. I think you're a jerk. When we judge others, we're really more talking about ourselves. But the moment we're in judgment, the moment we're in blame, the moment we're in criticism, we can know that we are out of alignment with our oneness with God and each other. Because God loves. That's what God does. God is love. God loves. We are love. And our call is to be love in the world, to be love that loves ourselves and loves each other, and calls each other to be love, to live the highest and best. And that's a piece of forgiveness. Because I'm going to make mistakes. I always say, oh, not the first one, not the last one I've ever made. It's kind of a joke for me, but it's a way to bring levity to me, who can get really rigid about being self-flagellating and being really mad at myself. Well, I made a mistake. How can I make this mistake right? What can I do? So I begin to bring love to myself, and then begin to ask the other person. And the people that I want to be close to, I'm going to have this conversation with, because I want to be close. I want to live in an intimate state. And when I say intimate state, I'm talking about being able to see into each other, into me, see. To be able to see into each other. And in order to open myself up to somebody, to be able to have them see into me, I'm going to need to have the practice of forgiveness. And to be able to see another person who is different from me, I want to have the practice of forgiveness so I can see whatever happens, but I can look beyond it, and I can see their divine nature. And I can focus on that divinity, because what we know is that what we focus on expands. And in my toolkit, I know that I can have the skills to say, please stop, or I didn't like it when you say that. Can we do this differently? I'd like to walk away now. I'm ready to complete this conversation. So that I'm owning it, and I can do it from a neutral energy state, from a frequency of love when I've been engaging in forgiveness, because that means that I haven't been collecting a lot of baggage that's holding me down. We're having a little trouble with our clicker today here. Thank you, Chris. When we hold resentment towards somebody or something, we're actually bound to that person or that condition by the emotional link that is stronger than steel. When I'm angry at somebody and I'm not practicing the art of forgiveness, then I'm actually energetically bound to that person. The Buddha talks about it like when I'm angry at somebody else, it's like holding a hot coal in my hand. When I'm mad at somebody and I'm not practicing the art of forgiveness, when I'm not looking at what was triggered inside of me, I wonder how I organize myself to hear it that way, which is not self-blame. It's actually the art of discovery. And then what in me needs healing? What in me needs healing? And if it's something that's more difficult and something more complex, say if I'm in a relationship that's abusive, whether it's physical or emotional, then I need to make some decisions. How did I organize myself to be here? And what do I need to do to love myself enough to leave? There are some complex human experiences, but we need to learn how to apply the spiritual principle that's already at work. What am I committed to? Am I committed to my health, or am I committed to eating junk foods? And that doesn't mean I can't eat potato chips or French fries once in a while. Am I committed to acting lovingly, or am I committed to just, saying whatever I think and feel off the cuff and not worrying about whether it was hurtful? Am I committed to blame and criticism, or am I committed to noticing what's going on inside of me, to speaking up and communicating, to ask for what I want, and then to notice what begins to happen, and what begins to happen will tell me something. All of that helps to clear anger. And I might need to go do something like dance or move or breathe or some creative, expressive way to deal with whatever the emotion I'm feeling, so I can come back into my oneness, my awareness of my oneness with divine mind. Now, I may not ever spend a lot of time with that individual, and I get to make that choice, and they get to make that choice about me. But what I also know is that I may not spend time, but I can wish them the highest and the best. I can bless them with love, because I know that whatever their intention was, whatever their thinking was, it was more about them than it was about me. And when I'm hurtful to someone else, I can apologize, because I know that whatever my intention was, it was more about me than that person. And I can bring my mindfulness to interactions. I can get present to interactions and bring my mindfulness so that I can reduce conflict. Now, conflict is not a bad thing. It's actually a creative tension that helps us grow. But I can bring my own skill set of love, of kindness, of caring, of generosity, of good communication skills, of my generous listening skills to understand what someone else is thinking, and to hope that they want to understand what I'm thinking, so I can be back in the flow of love, practicing the art of forgiveness. And so for somebody that I'm upset with, I can cut those cords and let them worry about what happens with their cords. I can only stay focused on my own cords, but I can cut them so I'm not bound to them like steel, because I'm hanging on to old energies of emotions that no longer serve me. So you might be starting to notice that really forgiveness And Charles Fillmore says this in his prosperity book. All forgiveness is actually self-forgiveness. It's forgiving ourselves for ever seeing the other person as less than divine. It's forgiving ourselves for acting as less than divine because we see ourselves as separate from the one that created us, separate from God, separate from love. Because when we are in that energy of love, we will tolerate a lot of things. And some things we not need to tolerate, but we can go look at somebody and say, oh, well, I don't think they really meant to do that. The person who honks at me because I didn't move fast enough when the light turned green, I can be really upset with, or I can go, wow, they must be in a hurry, and they felt like I was in their way. And I can just notice that without getting angry. It's just a notice. It's an observation skill. So I don't want to be bound to other people by old emotions that no longer serve me. I don't want to live in the hormones of stress because of my thinking. Because remember, what we think and feel and we are holding those thoughts and feelings in our mind, we produce more of those thoughts and feelings. And so if I'm holding anger, the universe is going to harmonize. That harmonizing factor of love is going to harmonize so that I draw myself to more angry situations. And I believe it's one of the ways that we are called to heal. Oh, I'm noticing I've been angry 3 times today. What inside of me is seeking expression for healing that I can take some time, sit in meditation and look at and make a difference with? These are some parts of responsibility, ways to act in forgiveness, ways to practice the art of forgiveness. Accept the responsibility. I said something I shouldn't have said. I made a mistake. I didn't turn something in on time. I have a consequence now if I didn't, pay my Visa bill quickly enough, so now there's a charge. I didn't watch my bank account close enough, so now there's a charge. What's really amazing is that happened to me recently. Money was going in and money was coming out, and it happened at such close proximity that I got a notice from the bank that I was overdrawn. I was so surprised because I'd already had money transferred. And so I went to the bank to ask what happened, and the teller looked at it and she said, oh, I'm looking at your transactions here. I think that they just accidentally hit each other around the same time. You don't have a whole lot of problems with this. I'm just going to forgive the service charge. Wow. The bank forgave that service charge of a bounced electronic transaction. It wasn't even a check anymore. And I felt grateful. And I took responsibility for recognizing I had waited till the last minute to make that transfer in. And so I began to change my behavior to make that transferred in to that account, because I knew what was coming out of that account and when it did, so that there wasn't this overlap. So I took responsibility. That doesn't mean blame or shame or fault, but I thought, oh, I can respond differently. And that's part of the process of forgiveness. I acknowledged the mistake. I repaired the damage. And I began to focus on what I had learned. We can all do that. We can take responsibility for what has occurred. And sometimes you'll hear me say, I take full responsibility for my part in this situation, for how I organized myself or what I brought to the table. Because whenever 2 people come together, there's actually 200% responsibility that's coming. It's not 100%. It's not 50-50. I bring my full self as often as I can. And sometimes my full self doesn't come to the table. And that's usually when I'm not present and I make a mistake. And then I say, will you forgive me, please? It's a practice. It's an action. It's a way of being. And when we can learn to recognize that each time that we have done something that we're holding onto and not releasing. We are kinking our hose or clogging our pipe so that the love that we are is not flowing as fully as it possibly could. And I want for me and I want for you, your love to flow as much as it possibly can, so that you get to enjoy every day of your life fully and get up and be excited about it and happy to be living it and go to bed at the end of the day and said, wow, we had a good day, didn't we? Or you can go to bed saying, that was the best day ever. I so enjoyed blank, 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 whatever it was that you enjoyed. Now, Charles Fillmore has a different take on, I forgot something. Forgiveness. Let's talk just about a little bit about this. Forgiveness is a conscious decision to release any feelings or hurt or anger. So we're making it consciously. I've been talking about that. Forgiveness involves seeking inner peace so that I'm not bound to somebody else. And forgiveness can assist us in cultivating empathy. When I see somebody doing something that I'm thinking, oh, that might not work for them, or oh, that might not work for each other, or for somebody else, or it might not work for me, I can think about a time where I did that so that I can cultivate empathy. Oh, when have I done that? And one of my pet peeves is people walking down the middle of the parking lot at Harris Teeter. And I can think back to times I've just been totally in my own head, having a great time, and noticed that I was walking down the center aisle of the parking lot, holding up traffic, and I moved over and I said sorry and waved, and I took responsibility. I took a different action. And I can just remember those times. I've done that. Or, oh, there by the grace of God, I could have done that. So when we have empathy for each other, we're actually opening up that energy of our hearts to love. Now, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore have something they call the sure remedy. The sure remedy is to spend 30 minutes a day in meditation. And in that 30 minutes, just go over your forgiveness list. I forgive myself for, I forgive myself for, I forgive myself. So I forgive myself for my procrastination. I forgive myself for any ways in which I have been unloving. I forgive myself for not eating well. I forgive myself for. I can just continue to do that in my time of meditation so that I can look at the tiniest thing to the biggest thing, whatever that is for me. I forgive myself for not feeding the cats on time, or for getting home late, or not watching time and missing an appointment, and the person had to text me and say, hey, Nikki, are we still meeting? I can engage in all that. And then if I feel like somebody has directed energy toward me that was uncomfortable, I can forgive myself for feeling the effect of that energy, or feeling at the effect of that energy. Let's take these thoughts into a time of meditation. I'm going to keep my eyes open, and I'm going to invite you to have your eyes open or closed, whatever works best for you. And I'm going to ask you to think about a time where you felt wronged. Wronged by another, wronged by yourself, wronged by an event. And I'm going to invite you to tune your inner awareness and do a body scan. And bring that moment up. And hold it in your mind for just a moment. And ask yourself, am I still at the effect of that event or that interaction? And if you are, if you notice that, no blame, no criticism, just bring your generous, loving attention to that place in your body where you feel it. It might be a tightness in your chest. It might be a tightness in your jaw. It might be those bubbles that you know are fear that are living in your belly in this moment based on that thought. And bring your generous, loving attention. And ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? What do I need to release and let go of? How am I letting this affect my life and affect the love that I feel and could possibly be feeling in this moment? And what am I willing to do? What do I need to release that energy? And for this moment, for this place, bring your breath to that place. I'm going to say it's in my heart right now. And I feel a tightness in my chest that feels binding because I haven't let go of some words that someone said to me recently. And I'm going to focus my awareness on my heart space. And I'm going to breathe in. And I'm going to breathe in love for myself. And I'm going to breathe out hurt or anger or fear. I'm going to breathe in the knowingness that the other is divine, which is another way of breathing in love. And I'm going to breathe out any feelings. And I'm going to stay with that process of breathing until I feel the release in my heart. If it's old, if I've been carrying it for a long time, I may need to practice that breathing for a longer period of time. If it's new and it's recent and it was just sort of like a ooh and ow, then it may just be that a few breaths in, focusing on my heart, will help it to dissipate, because it's simply energy. And energy simply wants to move. It wants to be acknowledged and it wants to move. I can bring a color to that. I can bring a color to my heart, that energy there, and think what would be the most delicious healing color that I can bring to this event so that I can release it and let it go. And as I tune in this moment, my first thought was purple. I can bring this beautiful purple light into my heart. Breathe into it. Let the purple surround and infuse that hurt. And notice what happens. I can make my breath rhythmic so that I'm breathing in to a count of 4 and out to a count of 4, letting the rhythm of my breath simply allow myself to be in the flow of life. And then life begins with that energy of life to assist me in dissolving and dissipating that old hurt. Are you willing to forgive yourself? Forgive others? Are you willing to live a life where you have abounding love in your life? Because that's who and what we are. And to me, that's very exciting. But I still have to do the work to open up my own heart to do that. Are you willing to see yourself as love? Are you willing? And as we come back into this time and space, let yourself make the choice about your willingness. And whatever choice you make, love yourself. Simply love yourself. For that is who and what you are. And that brings us into alignment with divine mind.
It's the hardest thing to give away, the last thing on your mind today, and it always goes to those who don't deserve. It's the opposite of how you feel when the pain they caused is just too real. It takes everything you have to say the words forgiveness. Forgiveness. It flies in the face of all your pride. It moves away the man inside. It's anger's own worst enemy. Even when the jury and the judge say there's a right to hold a grudge, it whispers in your ear saying set it free. Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Help me now to do the impossible. Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Help me now to do the impossible. Forgiveness. It'll clear the bitterness away, can even set a prisoner free. There's no end to what power it can't do. So let it go and be amazed by what you see through eyes of grace. The prisoner that it really frees is you. Forgiveness.
The prisoner that forgiveness frees is really us. I invite you to really tune in and celebrate the idea of forgiveness, and then begin to engage in the practice of forgiveness, to free yourself from the bonds that we have with anybody else because of unforgiveness, so we can allow the love to flow through freely. If you have been touched, if you have been moved or inspired by this time together, I invite you to give generously in whatever way works for you, so that we're engaging in an exchange of energy. And I invite you over the course of the next week to apply these ideas and notice what happens in your life, so that you can live the fullest, the best, the most freest, and the most exciting life possible for you and possible for me. And then as we engage in this possibility, we can bring peace into our communities.
Show me how to love the unlovable. Show me how to reach the unreachable.